You know, looking back, there wasn't a single moment where everything snapped. No, it was quieter than that, like a slow leak you don't notice until your tires are hissing flat on the highway, miles away from anywhere you can get help. That's how it started with Mandy. My wife, my best friend, or at least I thought so. At first, it was small things. The way she'd roll her eyes a little quicker than usual when I told a joke. How she'd choose to stay another hour after her yoga class instead of rushing home. It's easy to lie to yourself when you love someone. I chalked it all up to stress. Work was heavy. Life was busy. People drift sometimes, right? What I didn't expect was how easily she slipped away. There were these late nights where I'd find myself sitting on the porch, beer in hand, staring into the dark, wondering if she was even thinking about me, wondering if I was becoming background noise. Somewhere along the way, her laugh stopped reaching her eyes when she was around me. She smiled, sure, but it was the kind of smile you toss at the cashier at the grocery store, polite practice detached. One night, I woke up around 2 a.m. The house was dead quiet, but her side of the bed was empty. It wasn't the first time, either. I got up, padded barefoot through the hall, found her in the living room. She was curled up on the couch, phone lighting up her face. She was smiling at something. No, not smiling. Beaming. The kind of smile she hadn't given me in. Hell, I couldn't even remember. I stood there for a second, watching her thumb glide across the screen. Her face lit up in the dark. Part of me wanted to walk in, plop down next to her, and ask what was so funny. Another part of me, the quieter, sadder part, knew I didn't want the answer. So I just stood there like a damn ghost in my own house. When she noticed me, she jumped a little, locking her phone so fast she almost dropped it. "Hey, babe," she said, voice all casual, too casual. Couldn't sleep. Yeah, me neither. After that night, something inside me, some old battered part of me that still believed in happy endings, started to break apart. I started noticing things. How she guarded her phone like it was the nuclear codes. How she started picking random fights over nothing just so she could storm off and cool down somewhere else. How our conversations got shorter, clipped like she was rationing her words. And then there was him, Wayne. Goddamn Wayne. At first, it didn't even cross my mind to worry. Wayne had been around for years. He was married to my mom, for crying out loud. He was the guy who helped fix our plumbing, that one winter the pipes burst. The guy who grilled burgers at family BBQs like it was a religion. He was safe, family, a fixture. Or so I thought. If there's one thing life's real good at, it's making sure the knives that hurt the most come from the people you never think to guard yourself against. Wayne was always around more than necessary, but I figure it was just his way of trying to be involved. After all, my mom and he had only been married 5 years. Maybe he was still trying to build that we're all family crap. When Mandy invited him over for help with the fence while I was working late, I didn't even blink. When she laughed a little too loud at his dumb jokes, I told myself it was just awkward politeness. When I caught her texting someone, and she said it was Lila from work, I believed her, because that's what you do when you trust someone. You believe them. God, what a fool I was. I started seeing things I didn't want to see. The way Wayne would find any excuse to put a hand on Mandy's shoulder. A friendly touch, sure. But there's a way a man touches a woman when he's being friendly. And there's a way a man touches a woman when he's thinking about things he shouldn't be. The difference isn't obvious until it's too late. Still, I brushed it off. Because if I let myself think about it too long, if I let the suspicion settle into my bones, it would have shattered me right there. Better to believe in the lie a little longer. But Mandy made it harder and harder. She started dressing up for simple things. A trip to the store would suddenly require full makeup and those tight jeans she used to save for date nights. She started carrying herself differently, confident, like she was someone else when she was out. Someone wanted, not by me. No, not anymore. I'd sit at home, flipping through channels, drinking beer after beer, wondering where the hell we lost each other. I told myself we could fix it. That couple's hit rough patches. That maybe I'd been distant, too. I mean, Who doesn't get caught up in work? In bills? In just surviving? But deep down, even then, I knew you don't fix something that someone else is actively breaking behind your back. You don't patch a boat that's got someone drilling holes in the bottom when you're not looking. Still, I hung on, because that's what you do when you love someone more than you love your pride. You hang on, even as the rope burns your hands bloody. It's funny how you can live with someone for years and miss the warning signs because you're too damn busy believing in who they used to be. After that night, catching Mandy glued to her phone, I started paying more attention. And by paying attention, I mean I turned into a goddamn private investigator in my own home, minus the trench coat and the cool music. I didn't snoop. Not right away, anyway. At first, I just observed the way she started locking her phone even when she went to take a 2-minute piss. The way she started taking random calls outside, standing on the porch, talking in this low, secretive tone like she was auditioning for a bad soap opera. And somehow, Wayne kept popping up more and more. He needed to borrow tools. He needed to ask for advice. He needed to check on the wiring because your mom mentioned a weird buzzing sound in the garage. Yeah, buzzing, all right. It got to the point where I started avoiding my own damn house. I'd work late, even when I didn't have to. I'd stay out at bars drinking with guys from work just to avoid coming home and pretending not to notice the smell of cologne that wasn't mine hanging in the hallway. One night, I got home around midnight. The driveway was empty. Mandy's car was gone. No text. No call. Just gone. I walked inside and sat on the couch, staring at the blank TV screen like it could give me answers. Maybe she was out with friends. Maybe she was grabbing food. Maybe. An hour later, headlights washed across the living room curtains. I didn't move, just listened. Car door, soft steps on the porch, key in the lock. Mandy came in smelling like smoke and cheap perfume, her hair messy, makeup half smudged like she'd been laughing too hard or drinking too much. She froze when she saw me sitting there. "Oh, hey," she said, casual as hell, like we were roommates passing in the kitchen. Was just, out with Lila and the girls. Lila again, the same Lila who, according to Facebook, had posted pictures from a weekend trip 2 states over. Funny, Lila didn't look like she was out with the girls tonight. I wanted to call her out. I wanted to say something smart, something cutting. But instead, I just nodded like a fool and said, "Cool." Because what else could I do? I didn't have the proof yet. Only that growing pit in my stomach that said, "You're being played, pal." She kissed me on the cheek, quick, distracted, and disappeared upstairs. And I sat there for a long time after, the house creaking around me like it was groaning under the weight of all the lies packed into it. The next morning, Mandy was all sunshine and eggs, making breakfast like June Cleaver, humming some pop song under her breath. It almost made me second-guess myself. Almost. Then her phone buzzed on the counter while she was upstairs. And for the first time, I didn't hesitate. I grabbed it. There it was. Wayne's name. Not even saved under a fake contact. Just Wayne. Bold as brass. Had a great time last night. Wish we could do it again tonight. A wave of cold rage washed over me so fast my hands shook. I scrolled up. Messages, pictures, inside jokes. Talk about how sneaky they were being. How thrilling it was to be together behind everyone's backs. Wayne telling her he couldn't wait for their next little adventure. Mandy telling him she wished she could fall asleep next to him every night. I put the phone down like it was radioactive. Stared at it. At everything. At my entire life unraveling in my goddamn kitchen, while the coffee pot gurgled behind me like it was laughing at me too. I want to confront her right then and there. Slam the phone on the table and scream, "Explain this, you two-faced witch." But I didn't, because something inside me, something colder, smarter, said, "Wait, watch. Let them think they're winning. Let them dig their grave deep. Because when I finally swing the hammer, I want it to land so hard they don't even see it coming." Funny thing about betrayal, once you see it, you start seeing it everywhere. How she smiled more when she was texting than when she was talking to me. How she got jumpy when I walked into a room unexpectedly. How she forgot anniversaries, date nights, little traditions that used to mean something. And Wayne, that smug bastard, started acting bolder too. Little touches when we were all together. Lingering looks across the dinner table. Inside jokes that didn't include me. If they were trying to hide it, they were doing a piss-poor job of it. Or maybe they weren't trying anymore. Maybe they thought I was too dumb to notice. That was their first mistake. Their second mistake? Thinking I was just going to take it lying down. One night, I stayed up late, drinking whiskey straight from the bottle, sitting on the back porch staring into the dark. The sky stretched out over me, cold and merciless. And I made myself a promise. They were going to learn. They were going to learn exactly what it felt like to be blindsided, to be made small, to lose everything you thought you had locked up safe. But first, I was going to need patience and a plan. People think revenge is this loud, messy thing. Screaming, breaking dishes, public meltdowns. Nah, revenge, real revenge, is quiet. It's surgical. It's a scalpel, not a sledgehammer. And I was already sharpening the blade. The first thing I needed was confirmation. I had the messages, sure, but anyone who's ever been burned knows. Cheaters are slippery. They'll spin a story so fast you'll think you imagine the whole damn thing. I needed something even they couldn't lie their way out of, so I played the part. The good husband. The clueless sap. I kissed Mandy goodbye every morning, even though the taste of betrayal was thicker than molasses on my tongue. I made small talk with Wayne at family cookouts, slapping him on the back and laughing like we were still bros. Even though every time I looked at him, my fists itched to rearrange his smirking face. Meanwhile, behind the scenes, I got to work. First step, a little technology. Nothing fancy. I'm no hacker. But turns out a simple GPS tracker isn't just for finding your lost keys. I slipped a tiny one into Mandy's car under the passenger seat. Wayne's truck, too, when he stopped by one afternoon pretending he needed to borrow a ladder. Amateurs. They made it too easy. Second step, cameras. I set up a couple of discreet ones around the house. Not inside. I wasn't about to get slapped with some lawsuit. But outside, the driveway, the side yard, all fair game. If they were sneaking around, I wanted eyes everywhere. And boy, did those little gadgets start singing. First thing I learned, they weren't even being careful anymore. Wayne's truck showing up when I was working late, regular thing. Mandy running errands at odd hours, usually ending up parked on some side street where Wayne would conveniently show up minutes later. They thought they were slick. They thought I was stupid. Hell, maybe I had been, for a while, but not anymore. Now, every ping on the GPS, every pixel of blurry footage, it all built up like ammunition in my pocket. I wasn't just gathering dirt. I was digging their graves. You ever have one of those moments where you see your life from the outside, like you're watching a movie, and you don't recognize the guy playing you? That was me, sitting in my truck, engine off, windows rolled down, staring across a parking lot where Mandy and Wayne sat in his cab, heads close together, laughing at something I'd never know about. I should have felt shattered, but weirdly I didn't. I felt free, like watching the final scene of a movie you thought was going to have a happy ending, only to realize halfway through was a horror flick the whole time. And now I was a director. And baby, the plot twist was coming. I started prepping little by little, gathering all the receipts, screenshots of their texts, footage of them meeting up, GPS logs showing how they disappear together at the same time, same place, credit card statements with charges for sleazy motels I sure as hell hadn't been staying at. Every piece fit together like a jigsaw puzzle made of middle fingers. And the best part? They had no clue. Mandy was sweeter than ever. Guilt will do that to a person. Wayne still cracked jokes and drank my beer at BBQs, like he wasn't sneaking around behind my back like a mangy dog. It was almost impressive. Almost. If it didn't make me want to bleach my brain every time I saw them together. Then came the final prep, the big event. See, my mom's birthday was coming up. Big family party. Everyone would be there. Cousins, friends, neighbors. Hell, half the damn town. Perfect stage. Perfect audience. Perfect time for the curtain to fall. I could have blown it up earlier. Could have cornered Mandy in the kitchen. Could have sucker punched Wayne at one of our Sunday dinners. But where's the poetry in that? No, no, no. If you're going to expose two liars, you do it where everyone can see. You don't just burn the bridge. You nuke it from orbit. In the days leading up to the party, I felt lighter than I had in months. Mandy thought I was just getting over my funk. She started planning a vacation for us. Wanted to reconnect, she said. Wayne? He joked about us needing a guy's night sometime soon. I smiled, laughed, said, hell yeah, sounds good, buddy. Meanwhile, in my office, tucked in a folder labeled Taxes 2024, was everything I needed, every filthy detail, every lie, every betrayal, all neatly packaged, ready for showtime. There's something almost cruel about how normal life looks when you know the bottom's about to fall out. It's like standing on a frozen lake in the dead of winter, hearing the cracks beneath your boots, but everyone around you just keeps skating by, laughing, oblivious, pretending the ice isn't splitting right under their feet. That's what the week leading up to my mother's birthday felt like. An endless parade of ordinary moments stitched together by pure, seething rage just barely hidden beneath the surface. I woke up every morning to the smell of coffee drifting from the kitchen. Mandy already moving around the house like nothing was wrong, humming old pop songs under her breath. The same ones we used to blast in the car during road trips when everything still felt easy between us. I sat at the table, watched her pour coffee into my favorite mug, watched her kiss me lightly on the forehead, and ask if I slept okay, watched her go through the motions with the kind of effortless grace that only someone comfortable with lying can pull off. And I matched her performance, beat for beat, smiling, nodding, pretending, because the truth was, I wasn't playing the same game anymore. While she stirred her coffee and texted Wayne under the table, I was building a case strong enough to bury them both. The week blurred by in a haze of preparation, while Mandy picked out dresses for the party, and Wayne texted confirm he'd swing by early to help set up. I was locking down every last detail. The footage from the cameras I'd installed, archived, the GPS logs showing their secret rendezvous points, printed and highlighted, the text messages, the late-night phone calls, the receipts from shady motels tucked an hour outside of town, all collated, time-stamped, bulletproof. I even contacted a buddy of mine who worked IT security for a law firm, a discreet, no-questions-asked kind of guy, and he helped me compile everything into a neat, devastating little PowerPoint presentation, ready to go at the click of a button. It was almost funny how easy it was. They weren't even careful anymore. They thought I was still asleep. They thought they were winning. Let them think that. I was going to let them walk straight into their own public execution with smiles on their faces. The day of my mom's birthday party arrived under a sky, so blue it almost felt staged. The air was warm and sweet, with a scent of fresh-cut grass and blooming lilacs. Kids were running barefoot through the yard, their laughter carrying on the breeze, and adults stood in little clusters, beers in hand, talking about home renovations and sports scores and other things that seemed so comically small to me now. I moved among them like a ghost, shaking hands, making small talk, carrying trays of food out from the kitchen, all the while feeling the weight of what was about to happen coiled tight inside my chest like a spring-loaded gun. When Mandy showed up, she looked perfect. Summer dress. Hair pulled back in an effortless way that used to drive me crazy, a bottle of wine in one hand and a gift bag in the other. She smiled when she saw me, a real smile, or at least something close enough to pass for it. And for a brief, stupid moment, a part of me wanted to pretend it wasn't happening. Pretend we could rewind. Pretend I didn't know everything. But that part of me had been dying a slow death for months, and today was the day I buried it for good. Wayne arrived right behind her. Khaki shorts, a golf polo, sunglasses perched on his head like some washed-up frat boy still clinging to his last shreds of coolness. He gave me a wide, easy grin and clapped me on the back like we were still family, still brothers. The rage that flared in my gut was white-hot and blinding, but I smiled right back at him, bigger, brighter, because the show was about to start, and I wanted front row seats. Everyone gathered under the big white canopy my mom had rented for the occasion. Rows of folding chairs, plastic tables covered in floral tablecloths, centerpieces with daisies and mason jars. It was almost offensively wholesome. My mom stood at the head of the gathering, glowing with happiness, thanking everyone for coming, laughing when my cousin's kid presented her with a lopsided birthday card drawn in crayon. And then it was time for toasts. People rose, one by one, offering warm memories and clumsy jokes and heartfelt gratitude. I waited. I let them finish. And then I stood. I held up my glass, cleared my throat, and felt the eyes of everyone, friends, family, neighbors, turn toward me, including Mandy's, including Wayne's. Perfect. I smiled, the kind of slow, easy smile that must have looked almost serene to the people who didn't know what was coming. And then I began. "I just want to take a moment," I said, voice steady clear, carrying easily over the warm afternoon air, "to say how grateful I am to have grown up surrounded by people who taught me the value of loyalty, of honesty, of trust." A few heads nodded. Mandy smiled, unsure but playing along. Wayne chuckled under his breath, oblivious. I set my glass down on the table beside me. And because loyalty and honesty are so important to me, I continued, "I think it's only right to be honest with all of you today, here, now." I pulled my phone from my pocket, took a deep breath, and tapped the screen. Behind me, a Bluetooth speaker crackled to life, and the screen set up for the slideshow, the one that was supposed to show photos of my mom through the years, instead lit up with something else entirely. The first photo appeared. Mandy, in Wayne's truck, her hand on his thigh, laughing like she didn't have a care in the world. There was a collective intake of breath from the crowd. Gasps, murmurs, confused, horrified glances shooting back and forth like pinballs. Another photo. Wayne, kissing Mandy's neck in the parking lot behind a diner 2 towns over. Another. Text messages flashing up on the screen. "Can't stop thinking about last night. You're amazing. I wish we could just run away together. I hate sneaking around, but it's the only way to be with you." Another photo. Mandy and Wayne in a motel, arms wrapped around each other, the motel's tacky neon sign glowing behind them. I heard someone curse under their breath. I heard my uncle drop his beer bottle, shattering on the concrete. I heard my mother's sharp, pain gasp, but most of all I saw them. Mandy, frozen, her mouth slack, her face draining of color so fast it was like watching a dying sun collapse inward. Wayne, eyes wide, scrambling, looking around for an exit that didn't exist. I let it play for another minute, just long enough to make sure there were no doubts left, no room for lies, no path for denial, and then I tapped the screen again, cutting the display. Silence crashed down over the yard like a goddamn tidal wave. I looked at Mandy. I looked at Wayne, and I spoke. In case anyone was wondering, I said, voice calm, razor sharp, "This has been going on for months. Behind my back, behind my mother's back, in our home, in our family." No one said a word. No one needed to. The evidence was right there, still burning in their retinas. I turned to my mother, whose hand was pressed against her mouth, tears brimming in her eyes, and I softened my voice. "I'm sorry to bring this to your birthday, Mom," I said, "but I figure if we're celebrating the important people in our lives, it's only fair to clear out the ones who never deserved to be there in the first place." I turned back to Mandy and Wayne. "Get out." The words were soft, deadly, final. They hesitated, stammered, half reaching toward me like they could explain, like there was any explanation left that mattered. And then they fled. Literally fled. Wayne nearly tripping over the garden hose as he bolted toward his truck, Mandy stumbling after him, her high heels sinking into the soft grass, her face twisted in something between shame and disbelief. And the rest of us? We watched, in silence, the perfect audience to the perfect ending. The thing no one tells you about the moment after you blow up your whole life is that it doesn't feel the way you think it will. You picture triumph, some slow motion, movie-style satisfaction as the villain flees the scene, your loved ones lifting you on their shoulders, chanting your name, fireworks going off in the background. You expect the sting of betrayal to dissolve into relief, into victory. That's not what it feels like. It feels quiet. Too quiet. Like the air's been sucked out of the world, and you're left standing there in the wreckage, wondering if you really just burned down your own house to kill a couple of rats. I stood there under that white canopy, surrounded by stunned faces and dropped jaws, feeling more hollow than whole. Mandy and Wayne were gone, sped off in his truck like the cowards they were, and the silence they left behind was louder than any screaming match ever could have been. My mother sat frozen at the table, one trembling hand still clutched at her chest, her birthday cake, a pretty little thing covered in lilac frosting and Happy 60th in swirling script, untouched in front of her. People started murmuring, shifting uncomfortably, giving me sidelong glances, some sympathetic, some embarrassed on my behalf, a few even suspicious, like maybe I was the one who had just ruined a nice day for everyone. I didn't blame them. Most people would rather cling to a pretty lie than face an ugly truth. I looked at my mom, took a step toward her. "Mom," I said softly. She blinked up at me, a sheen of tears in her eyes, and then, to my everlasting heartbreak, she shook her head, stood up, and walked away without a word, disappearing into the house. The door slammed behind her, and that sound, more than anything else that day, carved a hollow space right through my ribs. I didn't stay long after that. What was the point? I helped clean up a few plates, stack some chairs, exchanged a few stiff hugs, and murmur reassurances that I'd be fine, a lie we all agreed to pretend was true, and then I slipped away while most people were still trying to figure out if it was polite to talk about what they'd just witnessed. Driving home, the streets felt unfamiliar, like I was moving through a city built out of someone else's memories. I passed places that used to mean something. The bar where Mandy and I had our first real date, the park where I once drunkenly proposed after a 4th of July fireworks show, and all I felt was this deep, gnawing sense of loss, not just of her, but of myself, of the man who used to believe in those moments. When I pulled into our driveway, I half expected to find Mandy waiting for me. Some final confrontation where she would cry or scream or beg or apologize, but the house sat dark and silent, untouched. She wasn't coming back. Not tonight. Maybe not ever. And for the first time since this nightmare began, I realized I didn't care. Not because I'd healed, but because the woman I married didn't exist anymore. If she ever had it all. The next few days were a strange blur. I went to work, sat through meetings I barely heard, answered emails with the mechanical precision of a factory machine. At night, I sat alone in our living room, or rather, in my living room now. The TV on but muted, a bottle of bourbon within reach, my mind endlessly replaying every red flag I'd ignored, every lie I'd swallowed, every touch, every look, every fake smile that I'd mistaken for love. Mandy didn't call, didn't text, didn't even try. It was like she'd been waiting for the moment she could finally step out of the life we'd built, like it was an old coat she couldn't wait to shed. And Wayne, not a word, not even an apology, not even a coward's excuse. The silence from him stung worse somehow, because Wayne wasn't just some guy. He wasn't just a neighbor. He wasn't just a friend. He was my stepfather. Yeah, that part stings even when I say it now. It's funny, the lies you can tell yourself when you're desperate to believe you're safe. When my mom married Wayne, I was already an adult, 23 years old, out of college, working my first real job. I didn't need a father figure. I didn't need a mentor. But Wayne inserted himself anyway. Took me fishing. Invited me to football games. Bought me beers at the dive bar on the edge of town. And gave me advice I didn't ask for. Advice about women, about money, about life. "You're lucky," he said once, on a night I'd gotten too drunk to drive home, and he poured me into his passenger seat. "You got a good head on your shoulders. You're going to have a good life. Just don't let anyone steal it from you." The irony makes me sick now, because while he was preaching about guarding my life, he was already plotting how to wedge himself right into the middle of it, first as my dad, then as my wife's lover. I found myself thinking back to all the little moments that had seemed odd at the time, but not dangerous. Wayne volunteering to help Mandy with home repairs while I was stuck late at work. Wayne giving her rides when her car wouldn't start. Wayne texting her happy birthday with a dozen heart emojis, which I brushed off as dumb, Harmless old man behavior. All the clues were there. I just didn't want to see them, because if I saw them, I'd have to admit that the people closest to me weren't safe, that the walls I built my life around were made of wet paper. And now they collapsed. It was 2 weeks after the party when Mandy finally reached out. I came home late one night to find her sitting on the front steps, a duffel bag at her feet, wearing an old sweatshirt of mine that looked pathetic on her now, like a costume from a play she was no longer part of. She looked up at me, eyes red-rimmed, face pale. "Can we talk?" she whispered. I didn't move, didn't answer, just stood there, staring at her like she was a stranger who had wandered onto my property. She took that as permission and started talking, rambling, crying, apologizing, saying she was confused, saying it just happened, saying it wasn't what it looked like, saying she still loved me. The words spilled out of her in frantic, tangled waves, desperate to drown the truth that was already too big to be washed away. And I just listened, silent, expressionless, until she finally ran out of air. Then I stepped forward, leaned down close enough that she had no choice but to meet my eyes. And I said very softly, very clearly, "You didn't just cheat on me, Mandy. You didn't just wreck a marriage. You stole my family." She flinched like I'd slapped her. Good. She should feel it. Every ounce of it. Because that's what real betrayal does. It doesn't just hurt you. It amputates you. Cuts away the parts of your life you thought you could never lose. Until you're standing alone, bleeding, wondering how the hell you were stupid enough to trust anyone at all. I stood there for a moment longer, watching as she broke down completely, sobbing, begging. And then I stepped around her, unlocked the front door, and walked inside. Without a word. Without a second look. Without forgiveness. People always say time heals all wounds. It's a nice thought. Comforting. The way fairy tales are comforting when you're a kid. Believing that no matter how bad it gets, a little patience and some good behavior will earn you your happy ending. But anyone who's ever been gutted from the inside out knows the truth. Time doesn't heal anything. You do, or you don't. And no clock, no calendar, no change of seasons will do the hard work for you. You have to get up bloodied, bruised, maybe a little less naive, and drag yourself forward, one bitter step at a time. The days after Mandy's last, pathetic attempt to worm her way back into my life blurred together into something cold and mechanical. I changed the locks on the house, canceled her name off the utilities, boxed up everything she left behind, the clothes, the jewelry, the framed photos she loved of our trips and holidays and anniversaries, and dropped them off at a Goodwill donation center without a second thought. The guy behind the counter gave me a weird look when he saw the wedding album on top of the box. "You sure about this, man?" he asked, one hand hovering like he was half afraid the box would explode. I smiled, a real, honest smile, maybe the first one in months, and said, "Yeah, dead sure." Mandy didn't fight for the house, didn't fight for the furniture or the car or the memories. She didn't even fight for me. I think somewhere deep down, she knew she didn't deserve to. Or maybe she was too busy setting up her next disaster with Wayne. As for him, well, small towns have long memories. It didn't take long for the whispers to start. Word about what had happened at the birthday party spread faster than a wildfire in July. You can't hide that kind of scandal when half your neighbors saw it unfold in real time. Wayne lost a lot more than just my mother's respect. He lost business, friends, the easy, casual trust people use a hand in without a second thought. Funny how that works. You can spend decades building a reputation and ruin it in a single, desperate decision. Poetic justice. The last I heard, Wayne was living in a dingy rented trailer on the edge of town, trying to start some half-assed handyman service out of the back of his truck. Word is, the only clients he got were people too new in town to know better. I never ran into him. Never cared to. Some ghosts aren't worth chasing. As for Mandy, I got a lawyer. A damn good one. The divorce went through faster than even I expected. Clean, ruthless, clinical. She didn't get the house. Didn't get a dime more than she was legally entitled to. And because of the evidence I had, the pictures, the texts, the timeline, she got the smallest settlement possible under state law for someone caught committing adultery. I didn't gloat, didn't celebrate, Just signed the papers, shook my lawyer's hand, and walked out into a cool, crisp morning that felt sharper, freer, better than anything I'd felt in years. I half expected Mandy to show up one more time, some dramatic parking lot scene where she'd cry, apologize, beg, but she didn't. Maybe she finally realized there was nothing left to salvage. Or maybe Wayne needed her full-time now. Either way, it wasn't my problem anymore. The hardest part wasn't letting go of Mandy. It was letting go of everything else. The trust, the belief that you could really know someone, that you could really be safe. It took time to rebuild that. Not by finding someone new to pour my heart into. I wasn't about to slap a Band-Aid over a gunshot wound. But by learning how to be okay with just me, I started going to the gym again. Not to get revenge hot like some sad cliche, but because moving heavy weights made the heavy feelings in my chest a little easier to carry. I started cooking for myself. Real meals, not just frozen pizzas and takeout. Containers piled by the sink. I bought new sheets, new towels, new dishes. Simple, solid things that were mine, untouched by old memories. I painted the living room a different color, rearranged the furniture, tore down the pictures that told old lies, and little by little, piece by piece, I built something that looked suspiciously like a new life, one that didn't have space for betrayal, one that didn't need someone else's approval to feel real. Months passed, seasons shifted. People stopped asking how I was doing with that careful tilt of the head reserved for trauma victims. Stopped looking at me like I might crumble at any second. Stopped treating me like the guy whose wife slept with his stepdad. I became just me again. Not a headline, not a scandal, not a broken man. Just a man, alive, healing, whole. And as for Mandy and Wayne, last I heard, they didn't last. Of course they didn't. What they built was born out of lies and rot. There's no foundation for that kind of love. No strength, no future. Someone told me they split up after a few months. Some ugly fight in a Walmart parking lot, complete with screaming and tears and accusations of cheating. I didn't feel happy when I heard that. Didn't feel sad either. I felt nothing. And that was the real victory. Not revenge. Not public humiliation. Indifference. The day you stop caring about the people who hurt you is the day you win. Looking back now, I don't think of Mandy. I don't think of Wayne. I don't even think much about that old life. I think about standing in my kitchen on a Sunday morning, the sun slanting to the window, the smell of coffee filling the air, my dog sprawled at my feet, the silence of the house not empty but peaceful. I think about the man I became, the man who learned how to be his own safe place. And I think about how sometimes the worst thing that ever happens to you is the only thing that could have set you free. I lost a wife, lost a family, lost a future I thought I was headed for. But I found something better. Myself. And no one's taken that from me again. Not ever.